On July 4, 2025, a day meant for celebration and reflection on the ideals of liberty, the nation found itself grappling with a stark contradiction. The festivities, the parades, the fireworks, all served as a backdrop to a legal decision that would profoundly impact the lives of 8 individuals. A federal judge, after months of deliberation, delivered a final, unappealable order. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, a culmination of legal arguments and bureaucratic processes that had reached their definitive end. 8 South Sudanese migrants who had built lives and communities in the United States would be deported back to a land they barely remembered. The courtroom's silence, thick with anticipation, broke with sobs and disbelief as the judge read the final verdict. Families who had clung to the hope of a different outcome realized that all avenues of appeal were exhausted, and their time together was running out. Human rights groups immediately condemned the ruling, seeing it as a grave injustice and a betrayal of fundamental human rights principles. They issued statements, calling it a death sentence due to the instability and violence in South Sudan, and a clear violation of international law regarding the treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. The story spread quickly, fueled by social media and amplified by traditional news outlets. It was no longer just a policy debate about immigration reform, but a human tragedy unfolding in real time, capturing the hearts and minds of people across the nation. News outlets shared images of the 8 individuals at the center of this legal battle, highlighting their achievements as graduates, their contributions to society, their roles as loving parents, and their presence as valued neighbors within their communities. They were Americans in every way but on paper, deeply integrated into the fabric of the nation. The public outcry was swift and widespread, a testament to the growing sense of unease and injustice. It was fueled by the stark contrast between the day's celebration of freedom and the promise of opportunity for all, and the impending loss of that very freedom for these 8 individuals who had sought a better life in America. The judge's order, while perhaps legally sound within the confines of existing immigration laws, felt morally bankrupt to many, raising questions about the true meaning of justice and fairness. It exposed the widening gap between the cold letter of the law and the warm embrace of human compassion, highlighting the complexities of immigration policy. It forced the nation to confront its own identity, its values, and its commitment to the principles upon which it was founded. As fireworks lit the sky in a dazzling display of national pride, 8 lives were irrevocably changed forever by a single stroke of the gavel, a stark reminder of the power of the legal system. The irony of the situation was unmistakable and deeply unsettling. On Independence Day, a day celebrating freedom and liberty, freedom was being denied to 8 individuals seeking refuge and opportunity. The debate over America's promise of equality and justice for all, and the often harsh reality of its implementation, had never felt more urgent, more poignant, and more necessary. Who are these 8 individuals, standing here with hope and resilience etched on their faces? What stories do they carry? What burdens have they borne? They are survivors, not mere statistics in a global crisis. Each face represents a life, a family, a community torn apart by conflict and displacement. Adung fled her burning village, the flames consuming not only her home, but also her sense of security and belonging. With unwavering determination, she carried her younger sister to safety, a testament to the enduring power of familial love amidst chaos. Machar escaped after his journalist father was brutally killed, silenced for daring to speak truth to power. His father's crime? Exposing corruption that reached the highest levels of government. They arrived in America seeking refuge, a sanctuary from the horrors they had endured, not riches or material possessions. With nothing but their resilience and hope, they rebuilt their lives from scratch, brick by brick, dream by dream. They settled in cities like Minneapolis, finding a semblance of peace amidst the bustling urban landscape, and Portland, drawn by the promise of community and opportunity in the Pacific Northwest. They learned English, worked hard, and became integral parts of their communities, contributing their skills and talents to their new home. Adeng cared for the elderly, offering compassion and support to those in their twilight years. Machar returned to college determined to pursue his education and honor his father's legacy. Dung coached youth soccer, instilling values of teamwork and discipline in the next generation. Naibel volunteered at a food bank, ensuring that no one in her community went hungry. Their children, U.S. citizens by birth, know only American life, its freedoms and opportunities. They celebrated holidays, paid taxes, and mourned national tragedies with their neighbors, fully embracing their roles as Americans. But now, deportation threatens to tear apart these families, shattering the lives they have painstakingly built. It threatens to erase years of belonging, of contribution, of unwavering commitment to their communities. Adung fears for her daughter's future, a future that hangs precariously in the balance. Machar fears for his life, haunted by the trauma of his past and the uncertainty of his present. The American dream they so diligently built is now unraveling before their very eyes, threatening to become a nightmare. Their roots run deep within their communities, intertwined with the lives of their neighbors and friends, but the ever-present threat of removal casts a constant shadow, a dark cloud looming over their hopes and dreams. For them, this nightmare is not a distant possibility but a real and imminent threat, a constant source of anxiety and fear. Their legal fight spanned a decade, a relentless uphill battle against a system that often seemed indifferent to their plight. Countless interviews, gathering and presenting evidence, each piece scrutinized and weighed, and navigating an endless labyrinth of paperwork. The sheer volume was overwhelming, a testament to the complexities of immigration law. Initially, they were granted temporary protected status, a brief respite from the storm, but bureaucracy, with its inherent inertia, moves slowly and unpredictably, often dashing hopes. Asylum claims, the cornerstone of their hope for refuge, were ultimately denied. Not for lack of truth in their stories or the validity of their fears, but on technicalities, obscure legal interpretations, and constantly shifting standards. Appeals climbed wearily from immigration courts to the imposing federal circuit courts, each step narrowing the fragile thread of hope that remained. The system, rigidly bound by precedent and legal constraints, systematically closed every door. The judge's order, delivered with solemnity, was not a rash act of malice, but the inevitable culmination of a long, emotionally and physically exhausting process. For the 8 individuals, their initial faith in the promise of the system has tragically turned to profound heartbreak. There are no more appeals to file, no more chances to plead their case, no avenues left to explore. The law, in its cold and impartial manner, has spoken its final word, but justice, in its truest and most compassionate form, feels conspicuously absent. The road, once paved with hope and the promise of safety, ends not in sanctuary, but in the grim reality of forced return to the very dangers they sought to escape. The system they so desperately trusted, the beacon of hope they clung to, has ultimately and irrevocably failed them. South Sudan remains a nation scarred by war, instability, and humanitarian crisis. Armed conflict, famine, and lawlessness are daily realities. For these 8, return means facing personal danger, especially for those like Machar, whose family was targeted. Seeking asylum in the U.S. marks them as traitors in the eyes of some. They would return to a country with no support, no safety, and no future. International organizations warn against forced returns, citing grave risks. Even the U.S. government advises its citizens not to travel there. Yet another branch is sending these 8 back. The deportation order ignores the warnings, prioritizing law over life. Now the 8 live in fear. Every knock could mean detention and deportation. They face impossible choices: leave children behind or take them into danger. Their story is swept into the political storm of an election year, their lives reduced to talking points. International condemnation grows, questioning America's commitment to human rights. Last-ditch advocacy efforts are unlikely to succeed. Their American lives are being dismantled, futures thrown into peril. This case forces a reckoning. When law and compassion collide, what kind of nation will America choose to be? The true cost of policy is measured in shattered lives and uncertain tomorrows.